It has been a while, but rumour season is back in full swing. Now most of those major releases are done for 2025, it's time to start having a look at what's going to come in 2026. And before we know it, we're going to be seeing the leaks and rumours of the S26 popping up everywhere. And actually a few things have already started to float around. Things like we're going to be getting an orange colour that copied the iPhone. Yeah, that's not happening. This isn't real. An S26 Pro is coming. And then Samsung is dropping Qualcomm and going all out Exynos for the S26 lineup, which is kind of not a lie, but I'll get to that. So let's go through a few of those early rumours. And the first question is just, what is Samsung even going to call these phones? For a while, it seemed like we were getting the S26 Ultra, the S26 Edge, and then the S26 Pro, which I already thought was a bit confusing, and then it got more confusing. Then it turned out that Samsung was going to drop the Pro name altogether from the S26 Pro and release the regular S26 alongside the S26 Edge, which was already replacing the S26 Plus. And then we would still have the S26 Ultra. But then Samsung decided to kill the S26 Edge because, surprise, surprise, no one really bought it. And then we were left with the Galaxy S26, remember, not Pro, just 26, and the Galaxy S26 Ultra with nothing in between. But then it turns out that that was all a waste of time because Samsung have actually decided to replace the S26 Edge with the almost dead S26 Plus. So you're following, right? The short of all that is that it seems like Samsung just gave up on all of that and decided to use the same naming scheme as it has for the last couple of years. So the S26, the S26 Plus, and the S26 Ultra. So no real changes there. However, there have been some rumours about some good changes coming to the S26 lineup. And if this one is true, then I am excited for this. One of the big rumours is that the next generation of Galaxy is going to have Qi2 magnets built right into the back of it. This is something that I really want because Pixel did that this year with Pixel Snap, and of course the iPhone has had it for ages with MagSafe. The reason we think we're going to get this is because of one photo that we've seen of dummy units that case manufacturers get, so CAD units. That one photo of the CADs shows you all three designs of these phones, and you'll see right in the middle there that there is a cutout, presumably where the magnets would be placed, and that is pretty much in the exact same position as the Pixel and the iPhone. I'm curious to what they would call it and brand this though, because I don't think they would just call it Qi2 magnets built into the phone. Google decided to brand it as Pixel Snap, which I think sounds really good, so maybe Samsung will go down the route of calling it something like Galaxy Snap. I don't know, but I think that sounds pretty good. Then the next interesting thing will be the charging speeds of what you get on these phones, because only the Pixel 10 Pro XL gets Qi 2.2 charging speed, which I would guess would be the same with Samsung, where only the Ultra gets those higher 25-watt charging speeds. This is not a rumour that has loads behind it yet. I've seen a couple of articles saying that this is something that might actually happen, but we only have that one CAD photo to go off. So fingers crossed this is coming to the Galaxy S26 series because I think it really needs it. Next up is camera changes, and we might see a change to the cameras across the lineup here, but unfortunately it's not really where we want to see the change. The biggest likely change coming to those cameras is the camera housing, and Samsung looks like what it's going to do here is replicate the rounded look that we've seen on the camera housing of the S25 Edge and the Galaxy Z Fold 7. This is likely coming to the base S26 and the S26 Ultra. The Plus might get this same camera housing as well, but it's all dependent on what Samsung decides to actually do with that Plus phone. So that one is a little bit up in the air now. Then moving on from the camera housing to the actual cameras themselves, I wouldn't get too excited about this because it looks like that what we've seen before, we're going to get again. The S26 looks like it would keep the exact same cameras with basically no updates expected at all here. And then that would be the same for the Plus if that's the road that Samsung actually go down. And then when it comes to the Ultra, you're not going to be surprised, but it's a bit disappointing that it's probably going to be the same again. No changes to the ultra-wide, no changes to the 5x telephoto, and potentially we could even see a downgraded 3x telephoto lens according to Ice Universe. That main 200 megapixel camera though seems like it's just going to be the same again. And don't get me wrong, this is not a bad camera, like it's a really good camera, but the problem is that Samsung haven't updated this for a couple of years now, and at some point they're going to have to update it if they want people to keep buying the Ultra phone. There are a couple of rumours that it might get a larger f1.4 aperture from the the f1.7 it has at the moment. Then I did see on Weibo that the Ultra could potentially use Sony's 1/1.2 inch 200 megapixel sensor, but then there is a little bit of doubt about that as well. Because there's not a huge amount of rumors about that camera, what I'm hoping is that Samsung are just keeping all this info under lock and key, and they're going to give us something really exciting. But if they don't, then we're going to have the same camera since we've had since 2023, and at some point you've got to change it. Okay, design. What else might be changing with the S26 lineup this year? And there is not a lot that is going to change. There's a rumour floating about that the S26 will get a slightly larger 6.3 inch display up from its 6.2 inch on the S25. And the Ultra could be getting slightly thinner by 0.4 millimeters, which I will take. I mean, I don't mind a slightly thinner phone, but I'm sure it won't be too noticeable with the weight looking to stay the same on the Ultra. Everything looks like it's going to be very similar to last year, and with the Ultra, you're still going to get those matte side rails, and you're still going to get that matte back as well. And the only significant change is going to be the camera housing. So it's going to start to look a little bit like the Z Fold 7. So don't expect too much here. What about all the other bits and bobs though, like the processor, the RAM, the battery? And there's a couple of rumors floating around. However, I did say at the start of the video that it might be that Samsung actually decides to ditch Qualcomm altogether and go with its Exynos chips. And that wasn't really a lie. I don't think they're going to ditch Snapdragon completely, especially for the Ultra phone, but depending on where you are in the world, you might get Exynos with the S26 and the S26 Plus. The Exynos 2600 is something that could be powering the non-Ultra devices depending on where you pick it up, and I really wouldn't be surprised if this is something we saw happen. It's likely that if you're in the US, you will be getting Snapdragon, but for everyone else, it's a bit of a gamble of Exynos, and it'll be interesting if this does happen to see how the Exynos chip stacks up to the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy that would be in the S26 Ultra and the rest of those phones inside of the US. Now for battery, very quickly, it looks like the Ultra is going to stick with 5,000 milliamp hours and the S26 Plus is going to stick with the same battery capacity as it had on the S25 Plus, but the S26 might actually jump to 4,300 milliamp hours from 4,000. And then for the RAM, it could actually be a jump to 16 gigs across the board, but that's something we have to wait and see whether it will happen. So there are a couple of those early rumors flying around about the Galaxy S26, and actually we don't know a huge amount yet, and I think that's maybe because Samsung hasn't even decided what's happening with these phones yet. But until then, we just have to go off all the rumors. And some other bad news is that it looks like these phones are going to be delayed, so we're not going to see them around the end of January, early February like we usually do. According to Ice Universe, these phones are delayed, and we don't know much more than that. We don't know exactly how delayed they are or when we might see them, but there is one report that says that it might be as late as March due to some complications. So we just need to keep our eyes peeled for more leaks and those invitations for Unpacked. But for now, rumor season is fully back. But let me know in the comments what you think of the Galaxy S26 rumors so far based on what we have. Disappointing? Are you okay with it? Do you think Samsung needs to do more? Before you head off, why not subscribe to the channel? And if you do that, then I'll see you in the next one.
Make a